it's always new. It's fun because it's always the same amount of time, a guest, but always different, always someone new bringing some stuff for us to experience, to discuss, to reflect. And that's the idea of this space, to get people together and trying things and learning together. So today we are honored to have Andy with us. Let me just put in the chat. If you don't have the chat open, keep it open because we put the information there. It helps you to follow what we are talking. So Andy, an amazing person from Kaospilot. If you don't know Kaospilot, you must. This is the school that when I saw what they do for as a school, I said, whoa, unfortunately, I'm too old to go back and join again, but I'm looking forward for my son to join Kaospilot maybe in the future, because it's a school for, it's hard to define what Kaospilot does. It's about a leadership, facilitation, development, evolving human beings. I don't know how to define what they do. It's amazing. Maybe Andy can tell a little bit about what Kaospilot does, and also what you're bringing us, something new, right? Some article that you're coming up with. And so I'm not taking more time. I want to invite you to take the floor and guide us to this 90 minutes. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you so much, Fernando. And Kathleen, that was such a beautiful practice, really, yeah, artful. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm really excited, and I'm also a little nervous. I'm going to share something with you that I'm sharing for the first time. So it's some ideas that I've been working together with my wonderful colleague, Federico, who's the head of studies at the Kaospilots. And yes, so it's a little bit of an experiment, and we'll learn along the way and see how it goes. Yes. So where to start? Should I start with a little introduction about the Kaospilots as a school? How many of you are familiar with the Kaospilots? I see a few familiar faces. Yes, I know some of you. Yes. Okay. So there's like almost like half here. So the Kaospilots was started 30 years ago, and it's a business, design, and leadership school. And really at the core of it is, yeah, it's like is leadership development. And that's also, we've just released a new strategy now in 2025, and it's all about empowering the next generation of leaders to bring more hope and belonging into the world. And a lot of the alumni of the 3-year program, they create their own companies, and we also have, and so that can be they do that in many different, fields, in many different ways. And we also have a learning agency, which we deliver shorter programs. And I'm the program director for the experience design program, which focuses on designing experiences that grow people and relationships. So we do a lot of custom program design. And yes, but I don't want to talk about that so much. What I'm here to share with you is some ideas around learning and when learning happens. So the origin of this, let's see, did Federico ever join? No, he has not joined. My colleague got stuck in traffic and has a sick wife, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. But Federico and I, we were speaking together during our Christmas dinner, and that was the origin of this conversation, or these ideas. So I'll just share with you a link in the chat, which is an article. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through the first 2 principles of the article. And then we'll put you into breakout rooms, discuss, come back, and then we'll discuss the last 2 principles of the article, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, and then we'll come back. How does that sound? Any questions or requests or thoughts before we we jump in to that? Some smiles, some subtle, slight nodding, some enthusiastic thumbs up. Yes. Okay. Nice. Nice. Great. 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 Cool. 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 All right. So the overall idea is that the main point, the whole reason that we create learning environments is so that the ripples of change can be created from that, and however that manifests for people. But that basically what we're exploring is, what if we put more emphasis, more focus on what happens after the learning, after the session, after this workshop that we're having, or this facilitation practice that we're having together. So that is really like the core of the article, the perspective that I want to bring to you and explore together with you. And yes, I can just say, now I have to look at the time, make sure I don't speak too long, but just as a way of context and framing that, over the last year, I worked intensively with Lego design, and I've actually been designing trainings that have been rolled out like to their whole learning, their whole designed department. And it's been extremely intense. It's been, one of the biggest projects I've ever created. And I think that this insight came to me as I was working on that project, that ultimately the impact of the learnings and the trainings that I gave to these amazing, some of the most skilled designers in the world was really, like um, the the meaning, the purpose, the impact of them would really come when behaviors change in the organization. And I know that a lot of people have talked about that before, about behavior change, but it really drove home this perspective of how can we bring more tools, methods, and practices to focus on that side of it, which is really like, how does the action how does behavior change roll out after a learning experience? And I think I'm specifically interested in it in the context of sustainable development and the sustainability challenges that we face, because they're so large that we need large scale behavior change to happen fast for things to go in the right direction. So with that said, I will now just share the first two of the perspectives. So the first perspective is around personal transformation, and or vertical development, if you're familiar with that terminology. And yeah, this is really something that's at the core of the Kaospilot pedagogy. All of our programs, all of our learning has at its core a deep personal transformation, a personal change component. And that personal change component is so essential to fueling the ability for people to really make the tools and mindsets that they're learning in whatever context that is really meaningful and personal. Yeah, vertical development isn't always easy, as it's something that oftentimes is triggered through quite a lot of challenge and difficulty. One expert in vertical development, I can't remember his name, but I was listening to a podcast, and he talked about this idea that oftentimes people don't go down a new path until the current path that they're going down is too painful. And that's, I mean, it's very hard, but it's very true in a way as well. And so oftentimes in this part of um like how we run our pedagogy, it has to do with, self-awareness. I know for me, one of the biggest transformations that I went through at the Kaospilots was that I was pretty conflict shy. like I really was quite conflict shy, and then I remember we did this like 360-degree leadership assessment where you rate yourself on how you think you did on a bunch of skills, and then your team members that you've worked with intensively on a very big project for a couple months, they rate you on those skills as well. And then what you find is that there are certain misalignments where your self-perception is different than your team, right? And that type of like radical self-awareness for me was extremely transformational in terms of that. A slightly more funny example is that my best friend today, I went to the Kaospilots with him, and when we graduate, or when we went into the Kaospilots, he was a coffee salesman in Norway, and he was making a coffee machine salesman in Norway, and he was making tons of money. I mean, he was really, really like, in this kind of like fast, like, and then after the Kaospilots, he is now a regenerative organic farmer and like he's running the biggest CSA in the Nordic countries now. And so it's just like that. And it's like, okay, that is a very clear sort of from state A to state B that happened as a direct result of sort of the Kaospilot 3-year education. So I just briefly speak about the second one as well, of relationships. And this is also deeply, deeply at the core of the Kaospilot's pedagogy and mindset, and something that I really have taken on as also my almost like personal mission in a way. And yes, there's so much neuroscience as well that shows that positive relationships are one of the pillars of human well-being, and like opening the doors to the mind so that we can learn sort of like one of the like things that we want to aim for is insights in social settings, right? That's when the sort of like, it really opens up the impact of our learning. And some of the concrete ways that we practice that are really interweaving different levels of relationships. So we oftentimes have in our professional trainings, we have like a home team, which works on this more vertical development, deep leadership, reflective work. And then you have a working team, which is a team that you meet that's more sort of high paced, and so in that like rhythm of moving between these allows for this rich relational context and environment. And from an experience design perspective, when we share meaningful experiences, and then we add one shared meaningful experience on top of another, it really creates a relationship. And so from an experience design perspective, we can actually we can design relationships to be meaningful, to be powerful. So yes, that was, I'll just share, okay, 2 stories, and then I'll, in the breakout rooms, I know I'm talking a lot, Fernando. I just went this summer to the 10-year reunion of I graduated from the 3-year Kaospilot program 10 years ago. And I went to the reunion this summer, and out of the 34 of us that graduated, there were 26 that came to the 2-day reunion. And two of my team members have gotten like a Kaospilot logo tattooed on their arm. And there was just like, there is something that is clearly working in the sense of building meaningful relationships when you see how tight the community is afterwards. So yes, I think that's all that I will share. So Fernando, can we put them in breakout rooms now?
Yeah, we have breakout with 3 and some with 4 people. We will have 10 minutes. And please take notes during your conversation about insights and questions, because when you come back to the main room, we'll have around 10 minutes to hear you and discuss with Andy again. Okay.
Yes.
Thumbs
Great.
up if you're good to go.
So what stood out to you?
Random
What insights
partners.
and questions? Perfect.
Here we go.
See you. Have a good chat. Yes, great. Well remembered. Hi. Welcome back. How was your chat?
Interesting. Really good.
Yes.
Good.
A lot of smiles. That's great. Awesome. So Fernando has a sort of way that he is suggesting to do this. I think it sounds great, which is would just love to hear your questions and insights. But if you just take a minute to write them in the chat or copy and paste them if you have them already written. So yes. So just take a minute or two. Like what were your like top sort of questions or insights around these first two topics? Yeah, slash and or this topic as a whole. Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Evelyn. Beautiful. It's a lot of really beautiful insights and questions there. Great. All right. Well, I see a few questions here. I mean, I'm really interested to talk about all of these, but why don't you also, if anyone wants to, just sort of add a reaction to the ones that are most alive for you, so we get a sense of which questions the group is most interested in. I see one sort of thumbs up on this, the one that you wrote, Evelyn, that 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 the more that organizations need connection, the more resistance there is to it. I think that's, yeah, I really have seen that as well. I think that's super interesting. Do you want to share anything about your experience with that, or?
Yeah, well, we also spoke a bit about how to not only talk about feelings, like do a check-in, like how do you feel? Like truly to connect that connection piece with the purpose, to use it like a framing, that would be more successful. But please help me more. We had very interesting dialogues. But it was in that direction that we all from both the US and my international experience and so on, we meet this resistance, like efficiency, get to the point, and they don't want to be invested in the relationship. They don't want to be vulnerable maybe, or like there's that level of resistance towards connection, which
they
is
just have
quite
too
interesting.
many. Yeah, they just have too many meetings on their calendar, right? And if they get asked to connect in every single meeting they're in, like that's a lot of mental energy, right? And so what does that mean, and how are you building the need for that into your output of whatever process? And this is for groups that are meeting over a long period of time, right? It's
Yes.
really hard. And yeah.
Yeah, totally. And there's such a focus on, yeah, what is the sort of, we're so wired for what is the output of this? What is the, looking at like these like outcomes. And yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, in some way, my experience with that is that if you can just really work on the mindset, because it is all a mindset thing, that people are either in the mindset that they can, you know, be open to connecting or not. But I think it's really interesting in terms of how, yeah, I mean, it's ultimately a culture change, which takes a very long time, and is difficult. I would be interested to hear if anyone else has other ideas of how to do that in the best way.
So I facilitated a group of mechanical engineers working on waterways, reservoirs, and dams in the States. And the icebreaker impromptu networking question that I used was, tell the story of the gadget that you made as a kid that you're most proud about. And these engineers erupted into bragging and storytelling around those gadgets. So the theme being, pick something to build relationships that aligns with the interests of the group you're facilitating.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, the group you're facilitating, the theme of the session, that, yes, I think there's like that, like when you bring it more like in alignment with the other expectations, I think that's, yeah, great way to do it.
And I don't know if anybody else experienced this when they first learned liberating structures, but I remember when I was a baby liberating structures like user, I was like, impromptu networking. Our first question is going to be, what's your favorite fruit? Let's keep it fun and light. And it's just, it has become really clear to me that we just, at least in the States, especially right now, the emotional energy that folks have to give to a process, like tying it to your process. I've been hit by the wet fish to learn that lesson, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. That's great. All right.
May I add just a
Yeah,
little
please.
thing? Hi, Andy. I think the best that I have tried as a practice is to have lunch with people. So what people call long lunches, which is very typical in Mexico. We sit and have a meal at lunchtime, and it's a 2.5-hour meal. It's not just a cold sandwich and a soda. It's you sit and you talk to people. And I started to do that when I was working in the States and living in the States, and my colleagues engineering team in microprocessor design, which was very cool and brilliant people, never talked to each other as long, during lunchtime. Everybody was having lunch at their own desk. And then I started to put that practice, and people were joining my table. That was amazing. It was so new to them, so not part of the work, but all the stories, as Mark was saying, the storytellers that were there at lunchtime. It was amazing. It was another person there sharing, and we learned a lot from each other, and that started to build the connections and more collective mentality of we are a team, right? So we are not just on our own. So probably that works.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Yes. Eating together. Such a good, yes, such a good thing to do. Yes. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of time more to go through all the questions. Yeah, we're not going to make it, Fernando. So I'll just go for like one that is, one of the most highly rated. Which is how to make more connection on the virtual platforms. I see there's one that's even more highly rated, how to create authentic relationships in very polarized groups. I've got to say, I don't have that much experience with that. But I can speak into the question of how do you make meaningful connections on virtual platforms. And I think, I've been through a journey in terms of that where, yeah, at first I was so used to, I hadn't been working online very much before COVID, and then get thrown into it like all the rest of us. And I think where I've come to, what is my best tip is to give more autonomy and really figure out how you can design virtual spaces so that you can set up your participants to steer their own learning journey. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that has worked best for me. And yes, I mean, in terms of building the meaningful connection, I guess, yeah, that is the autonomy is something that sort of also comes from the meaningful connection. Like when there's strong relationships, then you can give people greater autonomy. Yes, but I love exercises where you give people enough time to really connect as well, because it also takes time, and really focusing on that a lot, like connection before content, doing that in the beginning. So yes, that would be my best input there. Does anyone else want to jump in terms of how do you build connection virtually?
I can share just a listening practice that I use. It comes from reevaluation counseling. People have probably experienced something similar before, but it's where each person gets the same amount of time. You put people in breakout rooms and dyads, and the listener really just listens and just gives their full attention, doesn't give advice, doesn't give suggestions, doesn't say me too. And it really just gives people a space to process whatever is up for them. And so using those periodically throughout a workshop, it's amazing how much of a connection we can build with someone when they're actually not talking. They're just giving us attention while we're getting to think out loud. And it's been really surprising to me to hear people say how connected they feel to each other at the end of a workshop just by having a series of those dialogues with a different person each time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Love that. Yes, sounds like Turkey Consulting. That's also great. So yeah.
Just one exercise, and that it's very quick and you can try. I was thinking about this series of meetings for people very like booked during the day. There is one that I learned with Nancy White. You ask people to stand up and find a smell, an aroma that brings them good memory. Can be like a rubber, can be a coffee, can be anything. And when they come back, you put them in for 5 minutes in groups of 3-4 people, and they share their memories about that smell. So looks like when you connect the different senses, not just hearing and looking for things, we add another level of connection as well. And it's fun. People always love it. And it just takes 5 minutes.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, I love that,
Fernando,
making it more of an experience.
Sorry,
Sorry,
Andy.
Lynn.
No, I just said, Fernando, I think this might also be from Nancy. I can't remember, but in the virtual context, you can do a similar event by just like everyone grab an item on your desk that has a meaning, right? So you can, it's a little different. It's not quite as fun, but
Yes,
This
definitely.
reminded me of Stephen Rappaport, Intuition in Action workshop, and we did it digitally. And he had us dance in the beginning, just to stand up and look deeply in the screen. And the simple fact that he was staring right into the eye of the digital camera, always feeling like he's there, watching you how you perform. He really cares about you being there. Made everyone feel watched, but in a very encouraging and connecting way, not in a uncomfortable. Also working on sensations.
Yes. Stephen Rappaport, what a wild guy. I'll just put in the chat as well. There's
Yeah.
one of my favorite like resource banks as just like tons and tons of connection exercises, really well described. I think you do have to subscribe to it to be part of it, but then you get it for life. I don't know if anyone's interested. Shall we go to the next block, Fernando? Just aware of the time. So yes, we're just going to go into the next two principles. which is purpose and action and reflection. So yeah, these are also deeply the deep DNA in the Kaospilot pedagogy and our approach to designing meaningful learning experiences. So the first one is really about making sure that we're enabling the participants time to reflect on something, like how they can connect what they're learning as a bridge or as a pathway to something that is genuinely meaningful, something that is connecting them to uh, something that's bigger than themselves. And this, yeah, this is something that, you know, happens again through the practice of really action and reflection. And I love, you know, just like the way of thinking of it from this like Stanford class, how to design your life, that it's not something, your purpose is not something that is like people find. It's also not something that is individual. It's something that your purpose exists in the inner connection of you and your community. But it's something that you can also test and iterate. And so in that sense, it's not something that we would just like instruct our participants to reflect and then like find their purpose, their like, you know, or direction, but it's something that we instruct them to then test out as well while they are in the training setting. So yeah, I think one of the stories that stands out to me in terms of how the Kaospilot pedagogy really get students into a place of living, of acting and learning in a purpose-driven way, is that when I was a student at the Kaospilots, we went to Cape Town, and some students had a couple years ago, or years before, they had gone to Bogota, Colombia, and they had created a social movement called 101 Day. And it was really just, the idea was quite simple, that there should be 100, there was an invitation to create 100 positive actions to make the city better in one day. And we were, you know, 30 students going down to Cape Town, new culture, a new city. And it wasn't us that should be creating these 100 actions. It was the local populations. And we didn't have like a clear way to do that. And that's the kind of project that the Kaospilots would give us. But we did it. We created these workshops we called action factories. And in those action factories, we would invite local people, and we'd really also make that an experience, music, make it really fun to be there, a beautiful downtown setting. And then we would have people reflect on what was the biggest challenges in their local community, and then what were the small actions that they could take to work on that challenge. And the results were incredible. It was one of these, that was such a purposeful, meaningful thing to be a part of, because on that day, it was May 30th that we made the 101 day. We tried to calculate, we estimate there was around 6,000 people like directly involved, like doing things like cleaning a river, organizing a bunch of people to clean a river, or people organizing bike clubs, because there wasn't many people that biked, that are like biking. So they're just like organizing that a lot of people are biking at the same time. Or one of the projects that went sort of viral was a young woman. She had people write messages to the president of South Africa on a sort of just like a small piece of paper, and then would take a picture of them. And then she collected all these messages to the president, and that was so powerful, and different people holding that. So that's the kind of project, really engaging, like how do you enable that your learning environments, the trainings that you create are actually working on something that's meaningful. And the last point, the last perspective, mindset that I would love to explore together with you is around the rhythm of action and reflection. So this is also really at the core of the Kaospilot pedagogy and mindset, this which is really based on taking action to test things. And there's a lot of we work with lean startup, iterative design, rapid prototyping. So really, how do you getting people into this mindset of making, of doing, of building, and then at the same time really stepping back, slowing down, being in the design community. We have there's such a focus on design thinking, and this again, as I was talking about, this rapid iteration, things are just moving faster and faster. But there's increasing calls for really, how do we also create spaces of being? We're human beings, we're not human doings. And how do you integrate into learning processes, into innovation processes, into processes that are normally extremely high paced, actually moments of, reflection, being. We run an online program called Become Design for Transformation. And in that program, we have the metaphor of advance and retreat. Like the advance is when you work, you do this work out in the world. And then the retreat is when you sort of come back into yourself, and you really practice what you're preaching, so to speak. Yes. So those were the last two mindsets that I'm excited to share with you. And I'm really excited to hear your questions, your provocations, your thoughts. Yes. So we'll just do what we've done before, right, Fernando? We'll give you 10 minutes in a breakout room.
Yeah, I just put in the chat again the questions. Will be new triads, and yeah, we'll see you back in 10 minutes with your questions, insights to share with Andy. See you in a bit.
You. You're so good at remembering that. Welcome back. Hey, welcome. How was your chat?
That's good.
It's good. Cool. All right. So we'll just do a little bit of the same. Now you already know the format. So just invite you to write your insights and questions in the chat. And then, please react to them as well. So when you see things that are interesting, like just make a little heart or whatever. Yeah. So what are your biggest insights, questions, provocations, case may be? Discuss the relational strategies in traumatized groups using liberating structures that build trust are essential. Beautiful. Where can I regularly find support? How can I keep my eyes open for beauty? Okay, those are big questions. Yeah. How can I regroup and remind myself what I do know when I get scared that I don't know how to handle a difficult dialogue or situation? Wow. Yes. Love that. Do know, don't know. It's true. You do know. but oftentimes we don't feel we know, right? Yeah. Or we're not able to access where we know, or how, yeah, there's a sort of block in ourselves of how to access the place in which we know from. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that question really struck me. I know I have a tendency. As I told you, I was like conflict shy when I went into the Kaospilot, and I took all these trainings about conflict, and I kind of went too far in the other way almost, I would say. So then, so then when conflict would come up, or like I would like take charge, you know? And so now, my relation to that question is that I've really just had to, you know, just taking a few breaths, just taking some time when conflict, like I think, you know, I think the answer is almost in that question, that like, how can I reground yourself, right? I feel like that, for at least for me, that's what helps me, is like that, just taking a few minutes, a few seconds, or it's really great when you're working with a co-facilitator. And I oftentimes find that when one person is triggered by a group, the other person isn't, or like it just always kind of happens in that way that you can sort of balance each other. I find. So it's really also, how can you lean on each other in that sense. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about that question, Kathleen, or anyone else want to comment?
No, it's funny. I don't know what, it's the iterative nature of the question. It's like, I do like know the answer, and I, like you, like I've been to a gajillion workshops. And so there is so much that I've learned and that's in me, but there's just these old messages that minimize what's there and my ability to, and I think some of it's the searching for like the right answer, the right way to be with people.
Yeah.
And so I guess the other piece of the regrounding is like accepting that I might make a mistake and leaning into that fear.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on that? Someone in that group?
Just like leaning into the worst case scenario, and maybe before you enter the space, like leaning into that, and then realizing that on the other side of it, you still come out okay. It's a little practice I do sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
I'm also wondering if there's an opportunity to think about mistakes and reframing even just that thought, right? Like, because what if your mistake actually breaks a pattern that helps the group move in a different direction? It's like it's not that there's not mistakes. Like, obviously we make mistakes, but like I don't know. Yeah, that just sort of struck me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, well, learning and mistakes are so deeply interconnected in that sense. And I think the other thing that comes to my mind is what has actually also really helped me in that situation, or like a difficult situation. What has helped me most in difficult situations is that I've been through previous difficult situations, and some of them have truly gone bad. Like, I mean, there have been situations that have really not, like, it's not like, oh, I made a mistake or someone freaked out and then it was all fine. I was like, no, actually that ended not well. But like, that hasn't happened to me in years, but when I was first learning to facilitate, but those moments of when things really hit the fan, then then whenever I meet a situation now, I'm like, you have so much more confidence when you have been through those situations. So yeah, that's not I don't know how that is for advice, but you know, putting yourself in situations that really stretch you, I think can really help you build your confidence. Yeah.
So
Great.
I've learned the hard way that when I go into conflicted settings, which is almost all my work, including really traumatized groups, that I always have a physical object in my hand that is my anchor. I happen to have a piece from the Berlin Wall that reminds me it's jagged, it's sharp, and it's broken, and it anchors the memory of liberation. But holding on to that thing when I feel my stomach in knots actually allows me to then stop holding it so tightly and then relax. My whole rest of my being relaxes. And when something really comes forward in a workshop or a meeting that is really difficult, then do that again. It's a way that I use to slow myself down so I'm not in panic mode, but that I am become centered again. Really important because groups look to us to have a kind of quiet authority that's centered and calm. And so whatever works to make that happen in those conflict settings.
Wow. Beautiful, Mark. That's such a powerful object to hold. Wow. A lot of power and meaning in that. Fantastic. All right. Shall we try another topic? Okay, we have a tie here. 3 and 3. I'm drawn to Dahlia's question. Being human again. Human doing is worse than human making. There is passion in making craftsmanship. Lunchtime conversations. Do you want to say a few words about that, Dahlia?
Yeah, of course. What resonates from your intervention a lot was that we are human beings, not human doing or human making. And we're having this conversation, and Jean Pietro said that, yeah, I think it's worse in human doing, because at least in human making, there is a lot of passion and craftsmanship to do things better, to think about, to reflect, to create. So it was the way we were having this conversation is about we noticed that it's a common thing that we want to be again to recover that human part that was stolen by the pandemic, and the time is always there, and Teams, Zoom, meetings, and we don't have time to reflect. We don't have time to think and to really understand things before going to the action. So yeah, it was thank you for the we are human beings.
And what helps you and what helps you to do that, Dahlia? Like what practices work for you?
For me, I would say that is being present, being there when we are having a conversation, when we're having a group discussion. It's just not being present, listening, being silent if we need to be silent, but just being present is just so powerful, and helps to create an environment that we can trust each other, that we can just speak, and probably it's just the presence that has things will arise if we just are there present and not emailing and having my watch and how things are. So I think it's very human, right? So being present for the other.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think, you know, there's certain things in terms of that, like being like bringing full humanity to learning environments, you know, in terms of not asking things first, like what do you do as the check-in question, but you know, and getting to know each other more in a full human way. I think there's a huge movement and yeah, sort of the change of culture in society where we're seeing that more people are placing more value on the activities that they do outside of their work, or that the work identity is becoming sort of less important, at least here in Denmark, I can say. And I think that's very interesting in terms of what that will do as well to our culture and how yeah, how we can actually be more human. Is there anyone else that wants to speak about this topic, or should we move on to another one? Okay. Where can I regularly find support, and how can I keep my eyes open for beauty? I love the keeping eyes open for beauty. What does anyone want to speak into that question? Where does that come from?
I'm feeling like we're all being called to really find the power within and be able to ultimately find the support within ourselves that we need, and to be able to really hold our inner child at the same time that we're holding hands with our higher self, to be able to keep evolving and growing in this lifetime, but also to just stay grounded in ourselves and look to ourselves for the answers. And I think the more I'm doing that, the more I'm able to build those relationships and get the support outside. I'm not as much needy or insecure. I'm more grounded in who I am and what I need and want, and then the alignment comes in those relationships outside of me. Just my experience.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. Yes. All right. So one more, this question of how to overcome resistance of decision makers about introducing retreat spaces within innovation production workshops. Tell me about the ROI of this retreat moments. Yes. Yes, that's a great question. That goes a little bit in line with there was that question in the previous debrief. Yeah, around sort of, yeah, how do you make space for connection? How do you make space for these retreat moments? You know, I think that oftentimes from my side, it's just part of the package, it's part of the pedagogy, it's part of the way that we work, that we always we try to make learning environments as immersive as possible, which does mean that they are, yeah, it also costs money if you take teams away or take people away for more time and or ask for nicer locations. But I really do find that working together with the client to sort of talk about what they want to get from it, and then that we get to that requires that we are offsite, or that requires that we are yeah, taking more time. So I guess what I'm saying in short is, how can you get the client to realize that they need it themselves? That's oftentimes what I found has worked best. But I would love to hear other tips and tricks in that sense. How do you make space for how do you argue for retreat spaces?
I can share something. Not sure if it plugs very well, but I think that when I think of like making the case for ROI and all of that. I think one view that could be explored to raise awareness is like, what happens if we don't do this? Like people will remain disconnected and work will still be done, but we don't know if it's going to be done in the way that is more useful for everybody and for the organization. And what's the cost of doing that over time? And as, you know, activities and impacts compound. So that might also add a little color to whomever is, you know, looking at this from that perspective.
That's great. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's a, you know, kind of the carrot or the stick, so to speak. You know, like there's the positive thing that can happen out of this, and there's the negative thing that could happen if we don't do this. Kind of, yeah, that's great. Fernando, I'm just thinking maybe we should do the final wrapping up here.
Yeah, so the idea is to do a chat storm. So we write the answer in the chat, but we don't press enter yet. So if you can write what was valuable for you from today's gathering, and then you're done, you just show your hands on the screen, on the camera, add some perspective of your fingers. It's always fun. And then we hit the button all together. If you're done, just show your hands. Some people are done, some are still writing. Some are going quicker. Okay, I'll start the countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. And here it is, Sandy. You can scroll up and get some reading, and yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. The centrality of relationships, building in every facilitation context. This is beautiful. Free space to think, percolate new thoughts. What stands out to you, Fernando?
Oh, this the core values of my mentors. It's always good to remember from who we learn and how we practice and keep naming them all the way.
Yes. Increasing the amount of time I spent when facilitating to allow connection for participants. It's great. Yes. Yeah, I also really enjoyed this of like hearing how different people deal with the different situations. Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, if anyone wants to open the mic and say something for Andy directly, we still have a couple minutes. It's always good to hear people. Kimberly, your message came only to me because you were exchanging messages before. So if you want to, I'll copy and paste for you. Just to put in the chat again.
Thank you very much, Andy. And this was a wonderful gift present for myself that I experienced as it was my birthday. And thank you very much. This was necessary.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Saban.
Happy birthday. Whoa, who made cakes fall in the chat?
That's super cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Andy, for coming and preparing so carefully the session. It's rare to see someone devoted so much energy for just 90 minutes. So thank you for your, yeah, we can see how you take care of your experience, my friend. It's beautiful. It's inspiring. Thank you. And I hope to see you in Denmark soon. I'll be there sometime in the future.
Come visit.
Thanks
Yeah.
everyone for coming. And I hope to see you again next month for the next practice.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.